Estate Agency X, the UK's #1 estate agency podcast discussing the future of estate agency, entrepreneurship and business with hosts Mark Burgess and Rob Brady.
On this episode, we're talking to Sarah Driscoll from M&M Estates that's in Gravesend. We're going to try and break down how Sarah has managed to take over a family business and avoid working in the business, but instead work on the business to create structure around that organisation so that it can grow and thrive.
So, Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So for listeners out there, anyone watching, just a bit of background on who Sarah is and where you're from and what agency you run.
Yeah, so I own M&M Estate Agents in Gravesend, and we have a lettings and sales department. And yeah.
How long has it been operating for?
So the business has been running for 40 years.
Wow.
But that's not been me at the helm for that time. So my parents set up the business, or my stepfather and my mother set up the business 41 years ago. I always worked there, so I worked there from the age of about 13. Wow. And they were very much of the opinion that no, you've got to go to university, you've got to do different things. So I actually graduated from uni in quantity surveying and construction management. So I did that. I went and worked in London in that field for a number of years. And then when it came to thinking about potentially having a family and doing those sorts of things, for most women it isn't as easy as just, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And I had to consider the fact of, actually, I can't do the hours that I currently do, doing what I currently did. As it was, I spoke to them and they said, we need to retire at some point. That would be great. As I say, I loved working there. I used to love working there. Obviously, they sort of said, I'm not just going to give it to you. I've got a brother and a sister, so they were very much like, you're not having it. So I went and worked with them for 2 or 3 years, and then my stepfather sold. Well, they sold half the business to me. He retired and literally walked out the door and was like, I'm done. It's been fun. Good luck. My mother stayed for another 2 or 3 years, and she still helps me with sort of all those bits that you need to do when you're running a business that you don't actually, you don't really want to do. So doing the payroll and paying all the invoices and doing the accounts. She does all those bits in the background for me, which is fantastic. And then literally 2 years ago, I bought the other half of the business. So now she still helps me. I own the whole business. And yeah, it's been a great journey.
And how long has that transition been? Because you said you've got obviously like 11-year-old, I think it was 11-year-old child we still have camera, so like that 12, 13?
So yes, it's been basically, it's been 12 years.
Wow.
In the making, in terms of me leaving working in London and my other career, and then getting to where we are now. Yes. And in that time I've had three children, so yeah.
Previously, before, I did actually try and go down the route of being a quantity surveyor and going down that route, and it's quite a very complex process to go through. So what was the difference between doing that and maybe then going actually into a estate agency in that way? Because obviously it must have been a massive shift in certain ways.
A massive shift. I mean, quantity surveying is controlling or managing the cost of a construction project throughout that project and managing that procurement and how people are getting paid, so the contract that's involved. So yes, it's very contractual, it's talking about money, and it's construction, it's in the construction field, so it's very much me. My university degree, I think I was one of 2 girls on the course, and it was on construction sites all the time. So yeah, it's completely different in terms of what you do. In terms of the fulfilment I would get from the role, it was really quite low. It wasn't really great, in terms of what I was doing on a day-to-day basis, as well as the fact that I was commuting for an hour in the morning, commuting an hour in the evening. So I needed the flexibility of thinking, okay, if I'm going to have a family, I'm the default parent in our family. So for all intents and purposes, Monday to Friday, I'm a single parent. I'm responsible for 3 children at that time. So I needed to be able to create a life for me that meant I could do those things, but still have a career, still have self-fulfillment in myself and what I was doing. Don't get me wrong, being a mother is the most difficult, most rewarding job you could ever possibly do. Yeah. But actually for me, as with lots of people, you want more to life than that. And actually for me, going to work, as most women would say, is actually a break.
Yeah.
So actually, it was great to be able to say, okay, I'm now going to build a business that's going to enable me to do those things, which it has done, which, you know, is fantastic for me and my family.
Do you feel like for people that started their business, let's say from scratch, like there's a stage that they sort of go through that you didn't necessarily go through, but I'm guessing that like you must have a different kind of pressure in the sense of like, do you feel the pressure, maybe you own it all now, so not so much, but at the time, did you feel the pressure to, what if I just mess up everything that you guys have built?
No, 100%. No, I completely know what you're saying. I have the utmost respect for anybody that starts a business off from zero and builds it up into something. And as you say, I didn't have that. I didn't need to do that. But what I did was walked into a business that was already very successful, but was run completely differently to what it was run now.
Yeah.
My stepfather and my mother were very much in the business. They did the job every day. They were sort of consumed by it. They were very good at it and had a very successful business. But for me and my life, I was like, I need to create better this of what they've done. And I think they would agree. I have bettered what they have done.
Yeah.
But really, I think you guys do a lot of podcasts and lots of different sort of development with people in terms of helping them move from that I'm doing everything to actually stepping back and looking at the business and working on it. Now, I was able to very quickly say, okay, almost looking as an outsider, because I was walking into a business immediately being very critical of how it was run.
Yeah.
You know, let's be honest, that's what I was doing. You know, not to my parents' faces, obviously, but actually immediately you walk into something and you think, actually, what can I add to this initially, just in terms of process? Before I was thinking, okay, before I can remove myself, the reality is I had to understand, one, how it was currently run, how it worked, what I could improve in terms of that process, and also do the job myself.
Yeah.
You know, I have to understand the intricacies of each of the jobs and everybody's job to be able to add to that as well. So I did a lot of initially working and doing different jobs. I mean, to begin with, everybody did everything.
Yeah.
So actually, there wasn't a tenancy manager in lettings, and there wasn't somebody that did the viewings and a negotiator. Everyone did everything. And so initially, from the very beginning, I thought, this can't be right. We've got so many properties. We can't do this. We've got to add some sort of structure to this.
Some accountability as well, right?
100%. And actually to enable everyone to nail their jobs, to do it really well. Actually, what is your job? What is your job? What are you here to do? What would make today look good for you? Actually, let's get some job descriptions. What are the roles that we need? How can we put them? Is that the role that you would enjoy, whomever it was at the time? And the team has changed a lot since
so
then.
different, right? Because, you know, most estate agents that I meet, small independents anyway, or even, you know, medium-sized independents, they were estate agents, and then they decided to open their own estate agency. And as you say, like with your parents, like they start off doing the job, and then they show other people how to do the job, but there's still something inside of them that feels like they are them and the company are the same thing, and only they can do the job, as opposed to people that I meet who have either bought an estate agency or, like you have, stepped into an estate agency, who have come at it and gone, okay, well, I don't currently do all the valuations, and I don't really see any need that I should, so how are the valuations working? And then just, like you say, like tweak the process and run a business as opposed to be an estate agent.
100%. Well, it's that thing as well of trusting somebody else can do a job.
Yeah.
We all believe that only we can do a particular job and we can do it the best. No one else can do it better than us because we're amazing and we can do it. The reality is other people can do the job that you do, but you've got an emotional attachment to it. You don't want to let it go, which again, I can completely get. And even, you know, now you can watch, you know, some of the stuff in the office, or you can be chatting to people thinking, oh, I'm not sure I'd say it like that. Actually, one, just because you wouldn't say it like that doesn't mean what they've said isn't the right way, and the person that they're talking to, actually that might be the right person to talk to them. You're only hearing one side of whatever conversation's happening. It's that in terms of letting go and thinking, okay, what are the values that you think that role needs? Okay, well, great. There's a whole world of people out there. Actually, there will be someone that can fill that role for you. And it's tough. It is hard allowing someone else to do that. But unless you make that step, you will always be the person doing it.
Yeah, the letting go is the hardest bit always, I think. Like, I can remember, I might have told this story on the podcast before, but I started to realise it when my wife came out of corporate work, and, you know, we just had a kid. She came to work at Iceberg, and she was used to doing far more important work than, you know, working with me. But I gave her a project to work on, and she completed it. And then a few weeks later, I thought to myself, I forgot I gave you that project. Like, what happened with it? And she was like, yeah, it's all done. I was like, oh, but you never showed me. And she got all the stuff out and was like, here you go. And I looked through it all in detail and was like, yeah, you know, I wouldn't have quite done it like that. And she was like, no, well, why don't you fucking do it yourself then? and that's the moment where I sort of thought, yeah, either do everything yourself. That's fine. If you're going to do everything yourself forever, that's fine. But if you're ever going to complain about that, or you ever can see that that's a problem, then you need to think about the other way of working, which is giving people some autonomy, giving them some responsibility, and let's see if they can do it. Like, let them do it. They're going to do it different to you, but you're not going to do it. So
yeah, you either want to do it or yourself. You've got to trust someone else. And if you're going to let somebody else do it, get the processes in place, the accountability in place, talk about actually what it is, get it written down so everyone knows there's complete clarity on this is what we're trying to achieve, this is how we're going to get there. Talk to the people that are actually doing the task after they've done it for a period of time. Does that still work? Actually, what we're doing, is that the right way of doing it, or do we need to tweak that? Fab, let's tweak it a couple of times. Let's look back at it. Okay, now that is the right process. That's fine. Once those people know that process, they don't need to keep looking back and thinking, oh, okay, I've got to tick through the process. But the reality is everyone then knows how that process should be done. So actually, for me, a lot of my due diligence as well is looking back and saying, okay, we spoke before about the biggest risk to me is the difference between what I think my staff are doing and what they're actually doing. And that's day-to-day jobs as well as compliance and, you know, the legal sort of aspects of things. Now, actually, in terms of my due diligence for that, people don't want to feel like you're constantly checking up on them and being like, oh, have you done this, have you done that? But actually getting involved in different tasks, or actually at the end of each month thinking, okay, using your, you know, the CRM system and being like, okay, I'm just going to have a look at this. I'm just going to have a look at this process. Has this worked? Has that worked? Great, great, great. Oh, that doesn't look like it's quite gone as it should have done. And just talking to someone saying, oh, that doesn't quite seem right. What was the process? More often than not as well, somebody has made an educated decision based on the situation that was happening at the time. And I can't be there all the time. I'm not there all the time. So you either trust somebody to make that decision based on the situation that's in front of them, or you don't. And if you don't trust somebody that's working for you at all to make that decision, then you haven't got the right person working for you.
A good one, question I want to ask. When you first took over the business, you said obviously you were pretty much outside. You had to learn obviously pretty much a lot of the stuff, and probably realising when you worked at a very young age, thinking, oh, that's why people do what they probably do. But did you were you ever full-time into it, or was you still in this position where you were working predominantly more on the business than in the business? Because there's a lot of listeners and a lot of people I coach. The reason I wanted to get you on, because we've done a lot of coaching, it seems to be you randomly speak to me when you need me, we work out a process, and then whenever I speak to you again, it's done. And it's quite impressive in my eyes, because a lot of business owners of a small size like the idea but not actually struggle to implement the action
or delegate.
Yeah, or delegate. Or so from were you ever, you know, you said to relearn those roles, did you ever have to get fully in the business? And if that is the case, then how did you extract yourself back out into this position now?
Babies.
Yeah.
So the reality is I worked, when I had to go on maternity leave. So I was completely, I worked full time. I did the roles. I was in the thick of it, more so lettings than I was sales, learning everything, doing everything. I mean, at night, I said to you before, I loved it. I loved everything about it, and I used to do it when I was, I was so young, and I really enjoyed it. So I loved the job. And then somebody needed to be my maternity cover. And this was where it was very much, I always knew that, okay, I was going to be sort of leaving. And the person that came as my maternity cover is now the lettings manager that manages the lettings team and has been there for that time. So she came to do that. And then each time I've had a child, I've, again, had the luxury of how the business is set up, I have a sales manager and a lettings manager that run those teams on the day-to-day basis. If I wasn't there, you know, I took maternity leave. You know, each time I've had a child, I've taken maternity leave, and I've taken maternity leave properly in the sense of, you know, obviously call me if there's an emergency, but I'm with a baby, you know. And actually, in doing that, you know, the whole thing hasn't fallen apart. Everything's, you know, we would still have monthly meetings in terms of looking at figures, looking at where things were. But I had no choice other than to trust somebody. And actually, everything didn't fall apart. It actually ticked over. Yes, did we massively grow in that time? No, we didn't. But actually, for me, I have to think about, and I think for most people, you have to think about why you're doing something and what you're trying to achieve from your business. And actually, for everyone, it isn't about taking over the world and having 10 offices. It's actually about, I want to continue to grow. I want to know what I do. For me, it's about, I want everyone that works for me to love coming to work, to know what we're all driving towards, to get a real kick out of being like, oh, we're closer to X, we're closer to Y. How can I get better? How can I do this? You know, everything. If we ever lose a property, you know, we do. Everyone takes that person. I can't believe that. How could that possibly? You know, what can we do to? It's about everyone wanting to be there, because the reality is, they all spend more time together than what they do with their own families.
Yeah. It does make a lot of sense, because when we've been in those sessions, when I've asked questions about particular input, not everyone's just looked at you for the ideas. It's always been a collaborative collective, and you could see that sense of empowerment amongst the staff, that they feel like a responsibility, accountability, but also an equal goal and a drive towards the success of the business, rather than it just being like, well, Sarah's the boss, so we listen to what she says.
Yeah. Everyone's more than happy to disagree.
So much input. But I've seen that the not challenging conversations, but the conversations of like how things should be done. It makes a lot of sense now.
I think the corporate background that you've got must have made a big difference.
Huge,
because like when we do a business accelerator program for companies, they spend 12 months and they meet different mentors and stuff about different parts of the business. And on one of them, I can remember one of the people at the start of the session going over some things with some people, and then asking in the room, put your hand up if you could rewind back in time and no one was going to get hurt by it and there was not going to be any fallout, would everyone in this room rehire everybody in your team, or is there anyone in here who perhaps wouldn't rehire every single person in their team? And pretty much everyone put their hand up as like, I wouldn't rehire everyone in my team. And that is such a great example of what you're talking about, because they're so in it, they're so in the business that they know this, they know they've got problems, but they're not in a, like, they have never run a business to the point whereby they expect different departments to run like clockwork. And if those departments aren't running like clockwork, it's their job to kind of fix it, even if it is a difficult conversation.
Yeah. Like
it's not good enough really to go, I know, but they're a nice person. It's like, yeah, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't work here at all. I mean, if they weren't a nice person, you wouldn't even consider them. So, but being a nice person doesn't qualify you to be able to, like you say, cover off, be responsible for compliance. That, like, being a nice person doesn't qualify you to be a compliance officer, or, you know, to do certain things in the company. So, like, coming from that background whereby, like, you've had to train hard to get qualified to do the role, and then you've gone into a job whereby it's just expected that the company would run this way. This is how a professional organisation runs. Then going to your parents' business, who have built a really successful, nice, small business, but being able to sit there and go like, interesting. How comes it doesn't run like the corporate operation that I worked at? And okay, we're not quite the same, but still, surely we should have these things going on. And
yeah,
most of the business owners that we meet on the accelerator program are trying to figure that out, you know, because they are like they're your mum and dad. They're going, I've got a really good business here, but retirement's coming. Like, how the hell am I supposed to get anyone else to do anything?
Yeah, and the other massive thing is, you know, it's getting paid, isn't it? It's like, well, okay, well, if I'm taking myself out of doing X,
yeah,
I've got to get a member of staff to do X that I then need to pay.
Yeah.
So if I'm then paying them, where's that extra value coming? Because actually, if I'm giving them my salary, I need them to bring in double the business
Yeah.
to then pay for my salary. There's no point in then saying, okay, great, I'm going to bring in someone else, but I'm just not going to get paid. So I'm going to own a business
Yeah.
that I'm not going to get paid.
Yeah.
And that is a massive thing, and it's a massive jump to be able to do that.
You're right. That
And
is spot on. That is a massive problem that
Yeah.
people highlight. Like, if they replaced themselves, there'd be no money left for them.
I mean, the big thing that we do, which again never used to be done, is that I, for all intents and purposes, have two completely separate businesses. I have a sales business and a lettings business. Now, it's really important that I know whether those businesses separately make money. Do they make money? Obviously, I do also look at it as a whole, but do they make money? And actually looking at, all of the invoices now that come into the office is either, our rent, well, that's split between both of them.
Yeah.
But actually, if it's a lettings cost, it's on lettings. If it's a sales, it's on sales. So at the end of that, months and quarters, I'm looking at and saying, okay, well, how much do I need to pull in for lettings? How much do I need to pull in for sales? How much does it cost us to open the door for each department? How much do I need to bring in to make that work? And again, when you're just sort of starting, sometimes that it doesn't seem so important to begin with, because actually it's just the income, isn't it? But the reality is, as you start to get bigger, actually you need to understand whether it's making money or not. Because if it's not making money, actually, is it worth continuing with X? And I'm not saying it's not, but it's a question that you need to ask yourself and think, is it or not? Or is this something that I enjoy? Actually, we talk a lot about estate agencies and letting agencies, but if one is making more money than the other and it's just ticking over, actually, do you still need to do both? Do you want to do both? Do you want the hassle of both?
Such a good point. I remember talking to one of our clients who has got a very successful letting agency and had gone into sales a couple of years earlier, and I was about to have a Zoom call with her and her team just about a website that we were building for them. And away from that Zoom call, she had been having a conversation with me about how she's trying to convince the staff that they can charge more on sales because they're not charging enough. Because when they started, they did some low fee just to get a bit of traction in the market, and now she wants to put it up, but the staff are not sure, and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, do you want me to mention it on the Zoom call? Do you want me to talk about it with the staff, or do you want me to just stay out of it? She was like, no, yeah, please do talk about it. And I was like, okay. So we got on the call, and I was like, okay, so we were talking about various different things, and I was like, I think, like, what do you guys think about charging more for doing sales? Yeah, it's difficult round here, because there's so many agents that don't charge much, and da-da-da-da-da, and where we are, like, we think that we're at the right level. And I was like, okay, well, look at it like this. How many of you are on sales out of the 5 people that are sitting there? 3 of them, and one of them does half on sales, half on lettings. I was like, great, okay. And how many houses do you take on a month? Like, this many, I don't know, 10. I was like, and let's say you sell 80% of them, and you're charging this much. And I don't know what all your salaries are, but let's just say they're this much. You don't make any fucking money. So, like, if you don't charge more money, you're all going to get the sack.
You haven't got
And they were like, well, we probably could try. And I was like, let's do that then.
Yeah. Well, and that's another form of empowerment, isn't it? It's one, know your worth, and actually do your team so the people around you know how much
Lettings were just paying for this. You might as well just shut the doors. You'll make more money.
I mean, in terms of because I think as people, I think, can get a bit jittery about actually telling their staff or telling people that work for them actually where the finances are, where things are, how much money we need to earn, what we need to do. And actually, what you need to do and what they like to know is, this for example, this is what we did last year. This is what market is doing, i.e. based on the market share, be it lettings or sales. This is where we're currently at. This is where we want to be. This is what we've banked. This is what we need to bank. This is where we currently are. Actually, because that empowers, knowledge for them is power. They know whether they're working for a successful business. You don't need to worry that you've still got a job. I know so-and-so down the road has just gone bust. You don't need to worry because you can see that we're making good money, or you can see what we need to make.
See where it's going.
I think your experience before doing this came so much more valuable into it, because you've got a mindset of projecting into, like, quantity surveying is you're projecting into like a project that hasn't even existed yet, and you have to have the metrics and understanding on, like, okay, how much the cost of a brick's going to be, and how many bricks you're going to need to build it out. Not get to the end of the project and go, So our guys were like 2 million quid over.
Yeah.
So
Didn't have enough bricks.
Yeah, so yeah, we'd have enough bricks, yeah. I built Axe and he forecast for 2 houses instead of 1. So really, when you look at that, you can see the mindset and the shift that you have maybe from a traditional estate agency owner. A bit like Mark was saying earlier, most agency owners, truth be told, they've started just selling houses for another company, didn't like that company and probably set up on their own.
Thought I can do better.
Yeah, but not necessarily. And they do that to the point where they reach a limit, because the only other limit beyond that is taking them outside of that role and getting someone in there to do that role to then work on how do they grow. And I was speaking to someone the other day and they said, I want to do £1 million turnover. And I said to him, how are you going to do that? And he's like, well, then we're just going to have to sell some more houses. And I was like, but what's the market cap in your town? Like, how many houses sold last year and the year before and the year before that and the year before that? And what's your average fee? Because you might want to sell £1 million worth of business, but just for sales alone, unless the town expands by 3 times, and
It's not possible.
it's never going to be possible. So you have to then look into other areas. And he was saying, like, oh, there's someone interested in a lettings business down the road and they might be selling it. And I said, okay, well, what's the mix up of that? And he said, well, they've got one big client. I was like, do you know that client? Yep. And I was like, we've already having discussions that your house is not necessarily in order to get that sorted in your sales team. And you have to treat the lettings as a separate business. You can't just shoehorn it randomly in, just go, I'll just get some negs to just do some stuff. And
yeah. So we have just recently actually had a saying that, are we good enough to be better? Basically being that actually, is everything we do good enough to start improving, building, expanding more, doing what we want to do? Is it good enough? Are the basics right? Because if they're not right, you are inviting a problem into your life. You know, those processes, those, you know, even down to registering someone, that's the same on sales and lettings. You can't, every opportunity. One, are we using every opportunity that we currently have to add value to our business? And I mean value in terms of income for your own business, but value to your clients. So everything can't just be about adding money and taking out something else so you make money as a business. You've got to add value and show value that people genuinely are like, oh, okay, that was an amazing experience. That was a really great experience. And actually, you know, I would go back, I'd recommend that person or whatever it may be. So are the journeys that your clients are having with you decent? You know, would you be happy with it? And if the answer is, oh, you're not sure, or we could tweak this, or that's not quite good enough, then stop thinking, okay, I want to get bigger. Start thinking, let's get my house in order. Let's think about what we're currently doing. Let's nail what we're currently doing. Then think, okay, we're ready to do X. And by doing that, then you will then be able to expand and you'll be able to actually have that income that then you can slowly step away.
Do you know what's really interesting? When I used to train the staff, I used to always say to them, the goal for every conversation is them to know your name at the end of that conversation. Because so many clients, when I was doing that letting side, and you had, you know, you'd probably find it, a lot of landlords you'd be buying for other properties and other agencies. And most of them will just say, oh, it was down at such and such, but I'd never mentioned the name. I was like, who did you speak to? I don't have a clue. I'm just viewing it with them. And I said to the teams, whenever you're on the phone, make sure by the end of it, you give such a great experience. They know it's Sarah at M&M, not just viewing a property through M&M, which sometimes I get confused with like M&M and right move. You know what I mean? They're all like, is it right? I think I'm viewed it through right move. It's like, no, right move's a portal. Okay, it's like green agent.
But what you're saying there though is really relevant, especially in the sense that so many agents are considering the self-employed model. And whenever I talk to an agent that's saying, I think I might take on some self-employed agents, I'm immediately like, you must be fucking joking. Like, you've just been telling me that what a mess your business is in. Like, don't get me wrong, like you've got turnover, you've got profit, it's all good, but you've just been telling me like how many systems are missing, and you want to effectively franchise it out to some random person. Like, first of all, you need to, if you just, like you're saying, if you just get all of this in order, you might find that actually that little secret like idea that you was thinking of doing self-employed to reach some goal is probably not even necessary. If you actually just got what you've currently got in order and it ran like a machine and your value was to increase and your fees were to increase and everything was to work like clockwork and you earned the money you wanted and had the time off that you wanted, would you still want to get involved in this new project?
and it's crazy because I think as employers, we have a responsibility to our staff to be optimistic. Now, I don't mean like being toxically optimistic in terms of, you know, shit's hitting the fan and we're like, oh, it's fine, it's fine. Obviously, that's toxic. It's not going to help. But the reality is you've got to be optimistic in the sense that this is tough, but we're going to do Y or X or whatever it may be to make this better. And then if you have got that conviction and you know where you want to go yourself in terms of doing that, and you, whilst I say that I'm not there all the time, I will still, if a job needs to be done, we were, for example, recently, inspections. I have someone in the office, this is lettings wise, I have someone in the office that their sole job is booking inspections, they're booking them, and everyone's going out on them. And we were getting behind on them. I was like, you know, I haven't been on inspection in a long time. Book me up, sign me up. This needs to happen. Right, everyone, we're all doing this. It needs to be done. I will do inspections. This is when I'm in over the next month. Sign me up to it. You know, you've got to lead from the front. You can't just keep saying to people, do this, do that. Actually, that's not right. Actually, if something needs to be done, you need to be saying, I can do it. I can do that. Put me down for it. I can do it. And actually, doing those things is really good for you in terms of your business, in the fact that you forget what it's like to do those things.
Connected.
And to go back out, 100%, go back out. Talking to these tenants, it was lovely because actually I was like, how have you found the service with us actually? Oh, it's been wonderful. Oh, you know, Steph in the office or so-and-so in the office, they've been fantastic. Oh, we couldn't speak. That's really great. That's so great to hear. Would you mind doing a review for us on Google if I just ping it through to you? Oh, that's brilliant. I'll take that back. I'll make sure they know. All those things. Now, that tenant may have said to me, actually, to be honest, so-and-so's happened. Okay, that's not great to hear as a business owner, that something hasn't gone as it should do. But actually, do I need to hear it? 100% yes. Yeah. Because every single person that has an interaction with your staff and with you, with your business, is going to make up their mind about, have an opinion about your business. If that isn't a positive one, you then need to deal with that and nip that in the bud, and you need to improve something. Somebody may need training. Something may have been missed. Why has it been missed? How have we done that? So you're constantly looking at, okay, it's not like it's, we've done that, tick, we're successful now. That's brilliant, it's just going to work. Actually, that's not the case. You know, that's not going to be happening.
It was really interesting. I remember a few years into the role of that lettings, I remember being in that exact bit, we had a backlog of inspections. And we had a student big portfolio and stuff like that. We had to do a checkout. So I went out in that process, and I remember going to the property manager and saying, right, how do we do this process? And she's like, right, big jailers, loop, keys. And then there was like loads of these clipboard pieces of paper. And I was like, fucking hell, as you'd go in the house, you know, and you've got this like random checklist. I was thinking keys, and I was like, which key? You'd go in the key. I was like, this is really inefficient. Like, how are we even be operating? So I came back and I was like, right, does anyone else get this frustrated? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, we need to improve on this. And only in that moment of me just going through that, finding it frustrating, I was like, right, we're going to go for the process of one, identifying what keys are keys. Like, what's the front door key? What's the other bedroom keys? What keys are in there for the sake of just being a key that was
no one knows what the key
is. What's his key?
You're changing a process to make their life.
And then I was like, why have we got all these sheer amounts of paper? I was like, is there not technology that could just? They were like, yeah, there's some things out. So I went and looked in it, and I found it, and then we went, and I was like, and about a year later, I looked at the process, and I went and did it again. I was like, just all on the phone app, taking pictures, and I was like, still had the key, but it's still got. And I was like, just taking that step back, we realised we could then inspect more properties in that one given day. Yeah, 100%. which then enabled efficiencies. And without me doing that, people would have just done the same process over
just
and over
to
again.
Clarify that though, like for someone listening who's thinking to themselves, okay, now I'm a bit confused. You want me to come out of the business, but you also want me to go in the business. How would you find that balance?
I would say you are out of the business, but it's your responsibility as the business owner to ensure that the business is running smoothly. And the only way you can do that is on a regular basis, and I'm not going to say frequent basis.
No, just occasionally.
On a regular basis, you are saying, actually, I'm going to do X. Actually, I'm going to do Y. This isn't I'm not now doing inspections for the rest of my life. No. I think I've done 3, and I'm not doing any now because they're all up to date. Yeah. And I won't be doing any more probably until next year when we have a look and think, oh, actually.
In the right culture, one of the things which I learned, I was just reading up some literature review, and they're talking about coaching and mentoring in organisations. And the thing that it says in there is actually to ensure you have empowerment of people is, one, obviously stepping into the role of their day-to-day stuff, asking them the right questions, going through a process to understand it, and then looking at it from how can we improve it as a business, not I've just done that, you've done it wrong, I'm going to tell you off. So every time you're stepping into particular roles, you're a facilitator of supporting change to improve their thing. Not I'm going to come in because
Not what I did to Hayley.
Yeah, like, oh shit, yeah, Sarah's come in. She's gonna go and do this role, and we're gonna get told off, and she's gonna critique it and that lot. So there's in the right environments, I think, like from what I've worked with your team and worked with you, you can see how that works well in your company, maybe to more toxic based culture where it's like,
it's not what you say so often, it's the way you say it.
Yeah, 100%.
So I would come back and be like, I found that really difficult. Do you find that really difficult? Because I just did.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not quite doing that right. This was what I was doing. Is that what you have to do?
Yeah.
It's actually, and then they're like, yeah, it is. You know, actually, it's that sort of thing. It's how you're saying something. And it's also, I'm saying to people, if something isn't right, whether it's your computer, I mean, that's the main thing, a computer, the photocopier. Please don't put up with it and then be like, oh, it hasn't been working like that for a week.
Yeah.
Okay, well, when it wasn't working, within 10 minutes, why have you not done something? Everyone has the ability. You know, you've put up with that and it's managed to really annoy you. Why have we got to this point?
Yeah.
As soon as it stops working, report it to someone. Don't report it to me. I don't need to know. I can't fix your
Don't
computer.
report it to me because I'll do nothing about it.
100%. Yeah. You know where you need to take that problem straight to the IT company with you.
They come out of a book somewhere, I think, but it's got so common in our organisation now. It's called monkeys. Like, don't give me the monkey. It's your monkey. I don't want it. But you give it to the right person who looks after those monkeys, and you'll get it sorted.
100%. Yeah, definitely.
It's so true. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess the bit that you're kind of the bit that we're talking about there is like just having a team of people that are empowered to feel like they can make a difference. You know, like the way that you were talking about it there, you come back and say, I had this problem, do you have that problem? I do a similar thing with my team. I sort of think to myself, even if I know what the solution to this is, it's not that I'm some sort of like mega genius. Anyone who you asked would probably come with the same solution. So I might go to Rob knowing the solution and say to him like, you know what, there's this problem with, I don't know, that M&M have got with Life Cycle. How do you think we could solve it? Like, and we'll just, I don't know, well, I guess we could do this. Or there's a problem with, I noticed the problem with coaching. I don't know, how do you think we could solve it? Like, he's going to come to the same conclusion that I did. And then once he does, we'll go, great, let's do that then. You know, rather than me coming in and going like, you know what, I've been thinking about your coaching section and I think that you should do this. And it's like, right, okay, back to the Hayley thing. It's like, why don't you do coaching yourself, Mark?
Yeah, 100%. Until you're doing someone's job role all the time as well.
Yeah.
Actually, you don't know sort of what they're dealing with every sort of day.
It's
So you
quite
want them to come to
disrespectful,
you.
isn't it, to just go to somebody and say, I think you should change your job. You know, you should do this in your job. It's like, that's like saying to somebody, you have no kind of authority and anyone could do what you're doing because I basically decide what you do every day. You're just my hands. Like, it's an awful thing to say to somebody, really, isn't it?
It's hard that when you own a business or you're the boss, you're the manager, and you're witnessing somebody doing something that isn't right. Because again, the way I see my job and my manager's jobs is you're there to get the most out of everyone that's there, everyone that's in that office. So actually, what's the best way of communicating that or getting the most out of that person? And everyone says, actually, what you want to do is compliment somebody when they're doing something right. That was amazing. That phone call was really brilliant. That was, that was brilliant. We'll have to make a note of that and, tell someone else or whatever it may be. But actually that you're going to, you're really going to praise them when they're doing something right, as opposed to telling them off like you would a child when they're doing something wrong. Yeah. Now, you also have a responsibility for your business and for your staff that also if they are doing something wrong, you can't just, continually let them to do that thing wrong over and over again, but say nothing because you don't want to hurt their feeling and this is all a bit awkward.
But I think that comes back to like you making it clear what the rules of the game are. Like if we're a Formula One pit crew and I don't know, I'm responsible for filling up the petrol, Rob's responsible for changing the tyres, you're responsible for wiping the driver's mask. Like we've got 6 seconds to do this, guys. Like let's go. Like, and I don't know, Rob drops all the nuts and bolts all over the floor.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell him off and say, I wouldn't drop all the nuts and bolts over the floor. Like, I would put them on a tray properly. Like, I don't need to do that. All I need to do is reiterate. Remember, we've got 6 seconds. So what do you think we can do about the problem of dropping the nuts and bolts all over the floor?
Yeah. Or it comes back to what you said about somebody coming up with their own solution. Instead of saying to somebody, you're doing this wrong, what you say to them is, I notice this isn't working right. What do you think we can do about it?
Our pit stops are taking 12 seconds. Like, what are we going to do about this?
Is there a training need?
I can sit and think about it and then come back and say, right, Rob, we're going to have to get new trays. You're going to do it this way and this way and this way. But if I'd have just said to him, the pit stops are too slow, he can figure it out for himself, and then he'll feel much more empowered to actually do it.
Yeah, I think, but the leader requires that type of approach. I think if you are a leader who's reliant on dictation or dictatorial style setup, like, I'm going to tell you how to do this.
Everyone's scared, aren't they?
And everyone's scared, and I think it's really hard to try and change to the alternative to that.
It goes back to that thing you want. You want everyone in your organisation to really enjoy working there. Like, that's one of the primary things. Obviously, the company isn't you. The company is its own entity, and it has to make a profit for everyone to still get paid and have a job. So that's a given. That's just the way it is. So we all need to keep that as an objective. But other than that, you would also like them to have a lovely place where they work. And so having a lovely place where you work is probably not an environment where somebody's constantly saying to you, like, I'd do it like this if I was you, and they'd wait for you to leave and go, fuck it.
Well, this is one of the biggest.
One of the. I have another baby.
One of the biggest passions I ever got into the whole leadership and coaching and stuff like that was working in those organisations where you'd have a owner walk halfway through a conversation with having someone, not understand the first part of the conversation, and then just interrupt and start talking about something, and then the person's confused, and then they go, right, I'm just going to walk off, and then you're like,
what am I supposed
like,
to
and they're
do
looking
now?
at you like, who? I was like, sorry. So you just forget that happened and just carry on, and it's the whole team look around, they're thinking like, what's going on here? Or when they come in, you think, oh my God, what are they going to be like today? So it's that inconsistency around it. So yeah, it's really, you said some amazing stuff. I'm sure so much people out there can really take.
Definitely. Do you think that you'll, like, I know we're running out of time, but do you think that you when you look towards the vision of where M&M is going, does it remove you further out of the business, or do you just see it like the way it is at the moment, or do you get further involved? Have you thought about that at all?
I would like to be more involved in terms of growth. So as my children go to school, and all of them are at school, because I say I love being in the office, I love everything about it. So I would like to be more involved, but not, again, in the day-to-day running of what's currently established, but the growth in terms of where we're going to go and different sort of markets. So I can actually lead that as, again, a separate entity, as it were.
Love it.
And what on that? What's your vision for the future then?
I don't see that we need to have, I know lots of people want to have lots of offices, and open office here and open office there. I don't actually think in this day and age that you actually need to do that in terms of having a presence within a particular location. Where we are currently based in terms of the number of chimney pots that we have, I mean, it's still a massive market where we are. So for me, in terms of growth at the moment, for example, we don't do commercial. We don't do anything to do with commercial. So for me, in terms of us looking at our growth moving forward, that would be something that we would go into for lettings and sales. And I would champion that because that's actually an additional service offering to all of our clients and different additional income for us. And that's what we do.
I mean, commercial. I was fluttering that before I left the industry, because I was thinking there were so many archaic commercial companies out there who, like you said, if you put your team on top of that and your way of thinking on top of that, especially your background experience, there'd be so many people could, especially up where you are, there'd be so many places could add the value up there.
Thank you. I mean, from my perspective as well, I would like the teams that I currently have excel and are exceptional. I love the way they run. So for me, to add something additional to them would not, that would not be the right thing to do. So it'd be better for me to champion something and then create almost either another team or,
Yeah, love it. Really good.
Awesome. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this Estate Agency X podcast. can you make sure that you're actually subscribed to this podcast channel if you liked the content? It helps us massively to get better guests, and it just helps us generally. So you might think you're subscribed, but just have a double check, whatever your podcast platform of preference is, that you're actually subscribed, and then that way we can continue to grow the channel and get better and better guests for you.